So entrepreneurs think large companies don't want to innovate, and that is absolutely absurdly wrong. And then large companies think entrepreneurs don't understand, that they can't possibly solve their problems because the arrogance of a big company is we know best.
There you go. Welcome to the Your Seat at the Table podcast with your hosts, Idea Monkey Mike Maddock and ringleader John Tobin. We're two founders, a serial entrepreneur and a billion-dollar operator, to talk to leaders about how, when, and why they made their most pivotal decisions in life. Join us as we share wisdom, mistakes, and a few laughs learning from the brightest minds in business today. Welcome to the Your Seat at the Table podcast. I've always wanted to use the radio voice when we start these podcasts, and now I've done it.
You live from the studio. Rich Funk, welcome.
John's radio voice is louder than my radio voice. I like it. Rich Funk is our guest today. Rich has had really big jobs at P&G, Procter Gamble, which is where I learned what I know about innovation, Mars, M&M Mars. And then he went on to found his own healthy products company called the Better For You Company. So he's gone from being a buyer and manager of products that entrepreneurs are pitching to him and small companies are pitching to him, to a guy that is now a seller of products to Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. He's been on both sides of the table. His healthy products are really interesting. I've tried one of them and enjoyed it, called Boom Chaga. And I'm sure Rich will be telling us about Boom Chaga. Rich, I'm really curious and can't wait to dig in about what you've learned being on both sides of the table, big company and small company. So my first question, before you get to, we'll have you chat about how you got to where you are. But my first question is, which is a more difficult job, being an executive at a Fortune 500 company or starting your own company?
Yeah, great question. What a way to kick this off. No niceties, nothing easy. I would say it's way more difficult on your own being the entrepreneur. It's also way more rewarding, right? So it's that the greater risk, but also the greater reward. From the executive side, even growing at the entry levels of Procter and management all the way to higher levels, there's resources all around you. So it's very easy to lean over, at the time when I started, open your door and go next door and find somebody. In the end, it was through cubes, just popping your head up like a prairie dog and looking around, see who's there, and going bouncing ideas off, going and grabbing a whiteboard, having people that have been there, done that, or looking at it through different lenses. You have a lot of smart people all around you within literally a pen's throw to get their attention. And when you're on your own, it's difficult. You have a trusted, close group, but the rest of it is there's always angles. People are assuming you have more money than what you actually have, and so they're looking at it for what's in it for them. So it's really leaning heavily on those that believe in who you are and what you're trying to do, and you can trust to say, hey, I care about the brand, the products, the company, the people, and less so what's in it for me, but more so how can I help that. And that's been a big difference as I've seen it in doing this now for a few years full time.
Is it lonely?
Well, absolutely. It is very difficult. And I find myself monthly, maybe even weekly, thinking like, why don't others understand this? Or how am I communicating poorly such that people can't get it? Because the way my mind works is it's always racing. It's always on the go from the time I wake up first thing in the morning until the time I finally, am exhausted and fall asleep.
Is that mainly when you're thinking that? Is it mainly your team, other partners, or more clients? Like why don't they think like me? Is it mainly your team?
No, it's the team is coming along. So the team, as we've built that, over the years, the team is there. It's more as we're trying to influence bigger moves outside of the team. So whether it's suppliers, whether it's retailers, from one end to the other, whether it's distributors, anywhere in the supply chain, even I just got off a call with a marketing company where they were using a very commoditized term, and I couldn't wrap my mind around why they weren't using the brand. So to use a P&Gism, it would be, well, laundry detergent does this. Well, why would you not say Tide or Gain or whatever? Why are you saying laundry detergent? Why are you being a commodity? Why are you making it vague? And I was getting very heated because we've been working with them for a while. And like, why am I teaching you the most basic things of branding when you're my marketing agency? So the stuff like this, it just drives you up a wall. And I'm very sensitive to like, well, am I not communicating clearly? Like, what is my team not doing? My sales force or my my CFO or others, what are they not doing? Not just me, right? So how do I then reflect internally and say, how do we make that better and what can we be doing? But you just sit back and you scratch your head because something that basic with a professional marketing company we're spending a lot of money on, you'd think, my gosh, you'd think
Do
that they
you
would understand
you were
that.
the
So
global purchasing
that's
director
a real example hot
at
off the press.
P&G. Yeah, you were the global purchasing director at P&G. What I'm going to flip it on you then. What did entrepreneurs consistently misunderstand about how large companies actually make decisions?
I think that they would come to big companies not knowing what the value proposition is that they're truly that we're looking for, what they're looking for, and they would expect that we could move fast. I think those are the two things
Yeah.
that would be missed. So we would look at it from a standpoint of like, okay, well, somebody brings you something new. Okay, we're not going to put that into Tide globally, right? But we'll start it in a small segment or something over here. We'll test and learn to do this. And they came to us selling it internally by we're going to get in the Tide as an example, right? So there was a misalignment in the time it would take to prove something out at the scale of what we have. And that's how the good news there is I saw that on that side. And as I go to retailers, with one of our brands, we just launched in Sprouts nationally, all 500 stores in the past literally days. And I told them, they're bringing in one SKU. And I said, that's fine. Instead of me being this, go big, go big or go home, like, well, why aren't you bringing in all these? It's like, that's fine. Let's crawl before we walk. We're going to prove that out. And then once we prove that out, then we're going to talk about these other ones and why it makes sense to sell them in as a set. So you just have to understand where you want to be and with other stakeholders, what those expectations are. And I think a lot of smaller companies or smaller brands, entrepreneurs, new items would come into big companies because they didn't align with their stakeholders that ramp, what that on ramp would look like, that it's not going to be a hockey stick, it's going to be a 5-10 degree slope. I think a lot of folks miss that, and I learned that being on the other side of P&G, that you can't go in big to somebody big and expect that, hey, they're going to put you everywhere, and you're probably not ready for it anyway. It's a bit like if we go to approach some huge retailers, we're not going to have the systems in place. We're not going to have the IT department in place. We have to grow into that as we develop the Better For You company brands.
So let me flip the question real quick. I've, John, Rich, we've both had situations where 3 years later, someone says, turns out you were right. Well, that's great, but it doesn't do me any good now, and it doesn't do you any good now. Are there things now that you're on the other side? You're not at P&G anymore or M&M Mars, and you're like, oh my gosh, the entrepreneurs or the small businesses were right about this, and we missed it. Anything like that?
I think that it's interesting where companies give you more freedom to make to test and learn and play things. There's less risk of that because you can prove it out pretty quickly. It was more difficult to do that at Procter than Mars. So I think of packaging, where people coming out with packaging innovations, and now you pick up a package. How does it interact with you? If it's close to your phone, does your phone vibrate because it scanned a QR code, or there's something in the packaging that's pinging your phone? Things like this. We had these opportunities at P&G. We didn't take advantage of them because it was just not the big value proposition that people would see. And that's also the downside of big companies, right? To move 1% of an $80 billion company is $800 million. There's not a lot of $800 million ideas out there that you're passing up, right? So getting people interested in decimal points of percents is not big company thinking.
Yeah.
You have that, you can move that, and you can play with that the smaller you are, or the more you delegate decisions down to have freedom to test and learn. And I think that's a learning that I've been blessed to carry through.
Okay, so I jumped right in. Go ahead,
Yeah,
John. Go.
I was gonna try to maybe where you were going. I'd love to set some
Yeah,
additional context for
exactly.
me and the audience, really. But just going back to Procter and Gamble, and without giving the whole plethora of things you did over 24 years, um, could you maybe just give a very quick timeline and then where you ended up, like where you ended up, and then I'm curious. I'm always curious why people move. Like, what was it with Mars that moved, and if you don't mind, like just quick narrative there.
I'll give you very, very brief. Started off in engineering at Procter and Gamble. That's where I was recruited to do this in process engineering. So imagine going from lab to manufacturing. We were in the pilot plant, so it was a scale up. Okay, so you scale from lab. We prove something out that works in labs. How do we manufacture it in a 500-gallon vessel before it goes into a 50,000-gallon vessel, right? So we would go through process engineering to make sure all that works. And that's mechanical, that's physical, it's chemistry, it's all the stuff that goes into that. Okay, and then from there, I transitioned into procurement, so purchasing, strategic purchasing, many jobs there around the world. Then went into general management and owning a P&L. From there, they put me into North America logistics and global logistics. And then we were innovating because logistics spend at a big company can be as much as 5%, 5% of sales, 7-8% in developing regions, 10% developing regions, 4 or 5% in developed regions. So it is a significant logistics, especially now when crude prices again are approaching 100 a barrel, and nobody wants. I gave a speech once at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, thousands of people there. I had everybody. I said, "Raise your hand if you want your daughter or your son to grow up and be a truck driver." And it was crickets, right? So, you know, this is I was leading global innovation for all of our basically supply chains, and then from there, Mars Wrigley made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It was a really nice financial incentive, and my youngest had a couple years left in high school. He wanted the adventure. He wanted the adventure to go from a suburb of Cincinnati to the big city in Chicago. And Mars was giving me a lot of responsibility, a lot of freedom to kind of pave a future path forward for some organization sweeping changes and where we wanted to go. And yeah, it was a great opportunity. Learned a ton. Learned about two very different cultures, two mega companies, but extraordinarily different cultures, and couldn't be more opposite, frankly. And then yeah, I actually took on also after Mars. I was again lured away financially with the chief operating officer role, COO role, and did that for about a year and a half for a global group based out of Scotland. And then yeah, founded the Better. Well, in the midst of all that, founded the Better for You company with a best friend of mine, my best friend for 20 plus years at the time. I moved to Florida during COVID. As Mike can attest, in Chicago, things were a bit crazy. I couldn't go outside and walk in my street or go for a jog without a mask on. I had some personal loss during that time as well, to where I was being recruited. So all this happened personally to me. I was being recruited to be the CEO of a company down in Tampa, Florida. Went down there for the 2 days of interviews and did an Airbnb because I didn't want to be in the hotel with a mask on the whole time unless I was sleeping. Found out that Florida is an open state, totally different than what I was experiencing in Illinois. So I hit the life reset button and decided, you know what, I'm moving to Florida whether I get this job or not. Talked to the CEO at Mars. He said, "Rich, go for it. I fully support you." My job was global. I was home 1 week a month anyway. So I moved down to Florida amidst still working for Mars while I was working for this other company, Baxter's, when I left Mars. And yeah, it was June of 23 is when I
Rich,
decided to go full on. It was better for you.
John, I met Rich when he was leading innovation at M&M Mars or Wrigley Mars at the time, and I came in and helped him with some things. We did. Maddox Douglas and I gave a speech there. We became friends, And unfortunately, Rich and my story in terms of our spouses is incredibly similar. So we bonded over time based on, the health issues that our wives had at the time. And I, I remain fascinated by, someone that has been working at a Fortune 500 and then cannonballs into the entrepreneurial pool. Like what does it feel like on the, in the deep end? So that all my questions have to do with innovation or that, Rich. That's what
Yeah.
I'm most interested in. Talk about Boom Chaga a little bit, your flagship product, or at
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
one of your flagship products.
Yeah. So when I moved down to Florida in December of 20, within a month, I was at a farmer's market just 2 miles up the road from where I live. And guy was peddling chunks of chaga. And he was a wild, you
John has
know,
no idea what chaga is. Okay,
yeah,
Rich.
that's
No,
okay. I'll
no,
get to it. So
nobody does.
this guy, was literally out of the woods saying chaga's going to put hair back on your head. Chaga's going to make you stand up straight. Chaga's, I'm, trying not to make eye contact. I did. So he kind of lured me in like a stray cat. And, next thing I know, I'm looking at his, pink and blue sun soaked trapper keeper printed off of Google Sheets about what chaga is. And I said, okay, if half of this stuff is true, this could be very interesting. Now, remember the time. This is January 21 in the midst of COVID. Nobody knew what the truth was of anything. People are sick of being said, this is what's better for you. And then the opposite station says, no, it's not. This is what's best for you. So I said, man, if this is something that's there, this wild mushroom that grows on living birch trees called king of the medicinal mushrooms because it has, is it mystical, magical powers? Is it this? Is it that? My background is a pretty technical guy said, you know what? Let me use some of my connections, networks, and let me spend some time in the evenings and weekends looking into this. And that's what started it. Fast forward 2 or 3 months from there, I gave Brian a call, my business partner, and I said, hey, I think there's something here. I think we should invest some funds in this. I'd like to bring you along with me because I think we could have some fun with this. There's something here nobody has mastered. Google patent shows nothing here. I've looked at the core compounds that are inherently in chaga. Nobody has figured out how to optimize extracting those and putting them into a user-friendly form. There's a massive missed opportunity. We're sitting here at COVID. Nobody knows what the truth is. This could be true. Let's go figure this out. So through some connections, found a guy that runs a lab up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, MIT PhD chemist. 90% of what he hires is MIT PhD biologists, chemists, inorganic, organic. It's like it's an MIT subgroup right outside of where MIT is based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So worked with them 2.5 years. We optimized the extraction process, removed the one bad element that's in chaga called oxalic acid, to where we have process patented liquid supplements on the market that change people's lives. And that's what Boom Chaga is, and that's how it started, and that's how we got there. It took us 2.5 years, not because, frankly, the research should have taken 6 to 9 months full time, but it's because I was working full time, Brian works full time, and this guy was doing it, giving us a good rate as he had time to fill in gaps. That's why it took 2.5 years.
But
And
that's a great way to get it going,
yeah.
while you had some security already with your,
Yes.
day job, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. And I could fund it. I could fund it better, right?
Yeah. Makes sense. Curious of the different backgrounds you kind of led off with. I mean, being an engineer, a process engineer, and even thinking about that from a chemist standpoint, and then moving like to the logistics and everything like that. What are some of the biggest tools that you like now that you're in the business? Like, what are the biggest things that you relied on? I know it's probably everything a bit, but is there one thing that, like, well, if I didn't have this background, I probably wouldn't have got to the place that I'm in?
Great question, John. It's funny because when you're stuck in, you know, a New Year's Eve and you're trying to move trucks out of a lot and you're all over calling until 11:30 midnight calling trucking companies, you say, where did I make the wrong turn in life? Right.
Yeah.
But as I go back and look at that now, soup to nuts started off as a process engineer, rolling your sleeves up and getting dirty and figuring out how things work. Right. That taught me a ton. Understanding, fair value-based negotiations through all business aspects. The importance of a sustainable, demonstrative competitive advantage in anything you put on the market. Because if you're just going to push a commodity out there and it's another Me Too, you better have a lot of marketing dollars, or you better be the best sales rep out there to make sure you got people that are going to prefer your stuff, right? Having something, you still have to have some skills in all those, but if you have something that does make a difference and people can't just go copy and paste you, then you've got something that has some legs. You have more time to get that sales pitch right, the marketing pitch right, and you have more time for people to learn it, because people can't just come and leapfrog you. And then I'd say the last one, on the logistics side, understanding every touch point of the supply chain, the value proposition and the risks there. I can sit down and talk EDI, ASNs, all these different acronyms with any retailer and not have to, Google search what does it mean. And then I'd say those are all through Procter. And at Mars Wrigley, the importance of being able to quickly test and learn things, and they gave me, to give them tons of credit, they gave me a lot of freedom to do some cool stuff. And with that, we were able to go very quickly in trying some things. We had the largest global innovation on the portfolio for M&Ms within 6 months of me testing and learning something. And
That's what I'm talking about. M&M innovation. Let's go.
Yeah, no, it was something that was big, and I'm working with the CEO, presenting to the family, like it was a big deal, and it was from concept to market in 3 months. And at the time that it was an NFL program, so the season's 4 months, so I guess it was 7 months. After the success of that first season, 7, 8 months later, we're talking it's the biggest initiative for the next year. Unfortunately, COVID then happened, which killed people, tailgating, home gating. Everybody went into isolation, and people didn't. It wasn't the healthiest thing to be eating a pound of M&Ms on your own.
I'm curious about claims. So you have quick aside, when my late wife got sick, we had her blood tested as part of the protocol. And I remember she had this strange thing in her blood. And I asked the expert, what is that? He didn't know. I went looking for it. Turns out it's a uranium dust that is only in one part of the country, the Wind River Range, where she camped every summer. And it was in her blood still from when she was a kid. Heavy metal was still in her blood. And my new wife is somewhat of a geek. I was reaching for vitamins one day, and she goes, "You can't take those vitamins." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Because they have heavy metals in them." I go, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "They don't have to tell you that, but the tests show that those vitamins have heavy metals." So it stuck with me because I had had those two experiences. That got me into this like rabbit hole of FDA claims you can't make, you can make. So Boom Chaga is one of your products, Rich, and you believe and have in your heart and soul believe it makes amazing differences, but it isn't FDA approved. Let's not even talk about the FDA approval process. How do you make claims without getting into like the penalty box? How do you, even when you know? Go ahead.
No, good question. So you have to say, and there are legal buzzwords: supports, helps with, aids, actively demonstrates. You can do things like this, and then you are very, very pointed on what compounds and what they do. So, whenever we talk about Boom Chaga, we talk about betulinic acid. Betulin comes from birch trees. Betulinic acid, the DNA of the fungus turns it into this betulinic acid. Betulinic acid is proven through studies in Europe and in Asia and publications to accelerate apoptosis. So you got to get a little technical with it, but then you always link it to where the studies are and what the compound is, versus saying Boom Chaga will do this. You say Boom Chaga is loaded with these things, which help support, which aid, which those kinds of words. Okay. A big one that the FDA, and this is unfortunate, the FDA says inflammation is a disease. If I sprain my ankle and I'm taking over-the-counter meds to help inflammation, that's not a disease. I just sprained something that's swelling up, and it's my body's reaction to me being a knucklehead in my 50s and doing something I shouldn't be doing, like trying to dunk a basketball. So this is the kind of thing that drives us nuts that are trying to really help naturally heal people and get them better, is because you got to be careful with certain words or else you are on the target list. So we're very cautious, and also you have different attorneys because it's subjective.
Yeah.
So you have to be you want to default because you don't want to be in that target. You don't want to be in that radar. You're very cautious with how you do that. So I always go back to the compound. So as an example, we are loaded with beta glucans. That's a fact. We prove every batch. Liquid beta glucans or frozen beta glucans are stable. If they're in powder, they oxidize. I can say that. We've proven that out in labs. I can pull stuff off the shelf and do the same test. The FDA has approved beta glucans to lower LDL, thanks to General Mills and Cheerios. Okay. I can test oats and say, here's how much beta glucans are in oats. We have more than 10x per serving in Boom Chaga. I can't
Isn't
say
that
that
interesting?
I can't say that Boom Chaga lowers LDL. I say it can support heart, blood work, etc. Cheerios can say helps lower LDL, even though they have a tenth of what we have per serving, and we've proven that out. So we just have to be very careful with it until we get $250,000 to $500,000 to go and do clinicals, right? Then you can start to do that and you can change language. But
Right.
we don't have that kind of money yet.
I went to your website and it says, to your point, like I would never, this is something I just learned through you. Boom Chaga is process patented to support joint and muscle relief, heart and gut and kidney health, cell renewal. So like I would never have picked up on the support piece. And then the breakdown of the different things that you have in there, and then you could leverage, well, based on that has this, it does this. You can almost transitory property in a way. Uh, I think that's really cool. Did you? But maybe the one of the points I was going to make was just, well, for me, in starting a consulting company, I had been a consultant at a couple different consulting companies. I've been at a small one in Chicago, then big one, global, Ernst and Young. But what I really learned was when I went to my client, and I was a client of consultants. I literally learned the most about how to differentiate and what that means. You're starting a company based on a lot of the knowledge and experience that you had, and in two like pretty huge companies.
Retail and
Um,
sales.
how much do you think you could have done this like on your own, like right out of the gate, or did you really need that experience? Like now that you look back on it, maybe it's easy to jump there, but I'm always fascinated because Mike's like a serial entrepreneur, and he has many friends that they jump almost out of the womb, and they're an entrepreneur. I could never have done that, but I think certain people can. So I don't know. I'm just curious if you've reflected upon, now I am an entrepreneur, but man, how I got here because of the course work of what I did and my experience over almost 30 years. So how do you look at that?
Yeah, John, it's a good question. Mike knows me, so I think he's going to agree with this answer. Throughout my career, whether it's Procter or Mars, there's always been this, in big companies they call it entrepreneurship, right? But it's
Yeah.
really been this entrepreneurial way of going about it. So I've always had this bug, this like excitement of like always wanting to stretch and do it a bit, not to be different. I mean, look at me, I'm different enough as it is. It's just you know to try to say, well, is there a different value proposition? How do we really make this? What's the wow moment? How are we going to set this thing so far apart? Sometimes you swing and it's like, hey, you didn't have to hit it, you didn't have to drive it 350 yards. You only need to hit it 250. So now you're in trouble. So sometimes you overextend, but as long as you're humble, willing to learn, listen to the feedback. So, John, there's no way. I mean, look, we just launched Boom Chaga and Sprouts. The average time for a brand to get to Sprouts is 7, 8 years. We did it in less than 3. Okay, we've only been on the market since November 23. So have all those experiences and things helped? Absolutely. I would be nowhere close. And this isn't about me. Having the team, being able to pick skill sets because I've had teams of 100 plus people, right? Like being able to understand where to put people to get that feedback. Where do you pivot fast? Where do you say, oh, let's go for a little bit longer to learn a bit more? All those learnings of, frankly, 30 years before this have taught me everything, or else there's no way we'd be as far as we are. And were we perfect getting here? Gosh, no. We've made tons of mistakes in the last 3 years in launching this thing. But, John, to your point, I think you can't jump into this without having entrepreneurial spirit because you're going to get worn out really quick. And to Mike's point earlier, the question of being lonely, entrepreneurship is probably the loneliest thing out there because you're always thinking ahead. You're always trying to go somewhere, and you got to bring people along, which means you're like your shoulders and your back gets worn, just going that way. And I think it's John. The answer is there's no way I could have just jumped into this without having that experience and have the relative success in 2.5, 3 years without having the massive background.
John, if Rich is just about to jump into a Flourish group, and so I have some recency. I've just looked at his Colby in the last few weeks, and he is like you. His Colby, he sits in the orchestrator seat, which, I always call you an operator, John, but you're actually Colby is an orchestrator, which means that you're a chameleon, which means that you can look around the table and empathize and feel what everybody else is feeling. You can play the operator, you can play the visionary. The orchestrator is usually the person that keeps the visionary founder from killing the operator because they drive each other crazy. The orchestrator can sit right between them. And I think that's really served Rich because he has picked up on things from all the people he's worked with and totally respects their talents against his. Now, you told me a story last week, Rich, or 2 weeks ago about how maddening it was for you to sit with a small retailer. And you said something like they should just let the manufacturer take care of everything, take care of the shelf, take care of everything, and take your 20%. We know how to do it better than you do. Let us do it. And I thought that was really interesting because it's driving you crazy because these small retailers are entrepreneurs too. And they're just making it up as they go along, trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, you have P&G and Mars in your back pocket going, no, that's not the way you do it. You do it this way and you can really help them. So that conversation was what got me going on, man, what's driving you crazy? What's making you lose your hair the most? Like, so what is it that is making your hair recede right now? Trying to drive new products into retailers.
So if we talk new products in general, it's getting their time. So what's the purpose of the retailers? I think there's a lot of purpose misalignment. So when I walk into a health wellness store and the first thing they start talking about is margin, then their purpose is misaligned with what they say it is. Because if your purpose is to get people, like the Better For You company, our purpose and our mission is very clear. We will create, support, launch, or sell natural products that improve and extend people's lives so you can enjoy more of life. And that's a broad stroke that really every holistic natural retailer should have that same premise, right? That they will support and sell the best brands that are going to extend and improve your life so you can enjoy more of life. And when I walk into stores and the first thing they talk about is margin, oh, I don't have the space, or I don't have that. And I said, well, would you like to talk about our products? Yeah, I got a few minutes. Let's go. There's not they're either worn out because they've heard so much stuff and they look and they have how many different vitamin D's, C's, B's, A, whatever stuff that's on their shelf without really seeking to fulfill their purpose. And unfortunately, I think that's the same way with a lot of doctors out there today, where they start off going to med school being altruistic and I want to go and make a cure for cancer. I'm going to go and do this. But then they get through all the medical stuff and they have all the attorneys and the liabilities and all this. And then they're putting in their long hours and they're happy to go golfing every week because they need a break. Are they researching is every doctor taking that extra time to keep fresh on what the latest technology is? What the latest research is? Are there natural solutions that aren't going to give you all the long 2-point font commercial side effects, right? I think the intent was right and it's there, but then people get worn out for whatever reason. So it's my job to coach my team on how do you break through that. I can't blame them for where they got to. It's about how do we make them wow again? How do we get them back to being excited about what got them into this industry? And that's what's driving me nuts. And I've come to that realization of, you know what? I'm not going to flip a switch and have them change. It's going to be a dimmer and I got to wow them. whether that's through Boom Chaga, whether that's through Bionox, whether that's through the Biomade proprietary process and how we're putting probiotics in a living culture in a can, all these different things, we need to wow people more. And then the doors rotate. It's just a swinging door. It just goes right open and we go in and we set our stuff and doing creative supply chain things. Cash flows are tough. The economy's tight. Well, great. We're producing the minimum orders. We got a warehouse. You always pay your bills on time. Why don't I just extend that warehouse to where your shelf doesn't look as empty? We can take up some space here and have the stuff here. Oh, wow, you do that? Yeah, I'll give you extended payment terms, or we'll do it just for you because you pay your bills all the time. We'll do consignment for 3 months and see how it works. Things like this that just solve their problems. And then now you have an open door. Rich, anytime you want to come in and meet, yeah, Brian, Tripp, whoever's working, yeah, come on in, Christy. Then it becomes, but you've got to break the mold. That's what got them into that darker, colder place than what they ever wanted to be in.
I would imagine swimming upstream against the snake oil salespeople in your business is a problem.
There's a lot of chaga. Let's just talk chaga mushroom. The majority of the products out there.
I was hoping we could talk about chaga mushrooms today.
I know. What a coincidence.
I woke up this morning, John. And said, you know what? Today, I want to talk about chaga mushrooms. This is the day. Let's do it.
So chaga, most of these supplements out there are from a lab or from a warehouse. Okay, they produce them in brown rice and they get the mycelium, which is the root base of a mushroom. Mudwater, Rise, Everyday Dose, Host Defense, they all source from warehouses. You can still call it chaga because from a DNA perspective, it still is there. But remember what I told you earlier. The betulinic acid that is a special antioxidant that does not exist in any other mushroom, fruits, or vegetables in the world. That betulinic acid is why chaga is called the king of the medicinal mushrooms by people who have written books about this and studied this over centuries. You get none of it in that pill, powder, or any tincture that comes from a lab or warehouse. And that's the majority of what's on the market. So people use it as a halo ingredient, right? When there's little value to it versus what we have. Wild harvested chaga is very difficult and expensive to get versus something that's in a controlled lab environment. So there's all these things that require education, and people look at their mushroom set and say, I've already got too much of this. I don't want it. It's like, well, wait a minute. And then I pour it out and they see it's liquid. They're like, oh, it's a liquid. And then they look at the back and say, oh, there's no alcohol or glycerin. It's a water. Wait, how are you doing this? So you've got to get their attention. And the wow is it's a liquid. Okay.
Yeah. It's almost an advantage for you to say that with respect, I'm not a psychic. I'm not from California. I'm an engineer that cut my teeth at P&G and in Ohio. So give me 5 minutes. This is not like I did the math. I did my homework. Yeah.
So when you say it's a liquid, like do you mix it with anything, or is it like literally you
Coffee.
just drink it?
Yeah, John, you can drink it straight. It literally is one serving, which gives you more than 8,000 ORAC units of antioxidants. It's more than enough to get you through the day. One serving is 0.75 fluid ounces. It's that concentrated. Our process takes 26 hours in a particular proper designed kettle with filtration downstream, very hot temperatures. Okay, and it's just a water extract. It sounds simple. It is not, and nobody else can do that.
You put it in
Nobody
your
else has
coffee,
figured that
John,
out.
and you don't taste it.
Yeah, if you put it in your
It goes
coffee,
in your yeah.
I do a mushroom thing and it's scoop, but it
You
might
do
be
a mushroom? My God, you do a mushroom thing? What
do.
Is this bizarro land? How is this happening?
No, literally, I didn't. I mean, I'm gonna look into it. I've been trying to. I have issues, and I'm trying to resolve. But
my God, well, we know that.
So
but
Rich,
mushrooms.
So John, let me ask you this: have you ever cooked with mushrooms? You cook with mushrooms. Everybody's cooked with mushrooms. Mushrooms are not water soluble. So when you cook them, they get a little smaller. They look a little oily. They'll absorb some of the butter or the oil, whatever you're cooking with. So they change form. Mushrooms in general, whether they're medicinal mushrooms or the mushrooms you eat, we won't talk about psychologicals on this podcast. But the medicinal and some medicinals are edible, and then edible mushrooms like portobellos and whitecaps and whatever. They're very high in fiber. Okay, that's why they don't dissolve. That's because they're fibrous. To get all the medicinal value out of that, that means your body has to do the breakdown and the extraction. So your saliva, the enzymes in your mouth, as it goes down through into your stomach, as your stomach got the right pH balance and enzymes and probiotics and things like this, as you're feeding it, such that your stomach is going to extract into your body all that you've consumed, while it's also getting hit with whatever else. Was there pasta in there? Was there this? Like, how are you cooking your mushrooms? How are you taking them? So think about this complex biosystem that's happening as you're eating mushrooms. What people don't realize is when they have these powders, like what you take, you've got ground up mushrooms. Or
Got
somebody
it.
has extracted it and dried the
Yeah.
heck out of it, which is when you kill all the good stuff. Just like you don't take your vegetables and boil them for 5 hours because you're killing off all the good stuff. We took 2.5 years with an MIT PhD led lab on how do you make sure you have this God given amazing thing that has really natural positive health benefits to us, and how do you not ruin it? How do you optimize the good stuff, eliminate the one bad? And that's what we've done. And people don't think that way, John. In the supplement space, the downside, like Mike said, well, there's heavy metals in this. Well, there's people are trying to grind stuff up, put it in something, say, oh, with L-arginine, up with citrulline, with it's now a sea moss product. Well, did that sea moss get tested for heavy metals? Because you know what algae does in the ocean is it cleanses the ocean, and microplastics get caught up in there. So are you taking microplastics with these leads? So there's a ton of stuff, and you really, one of the other models we have at the Better For You company is know the source, know the process. Is it better for you? And I encourage everybody, if you're taking supplements, get to know that company, what they stand for, and what their papers, their publications, what research they've done.
And if they get bought,
With
go
the
ahead. Hey,
product
go
the
ahead.
better for you company. So did you create that, like, is it like a holding company for different products
That's our
or
umbrella. That's our parent. So think of Procter
your
and Gamble.
umbrella?
They have a bunch
Yeah.
of think of Procter and Gamble. They have a bunch of brands. Mars family has a bunch of brands: pet care, food, snacking, confections, right? And then under there's brands. The objective was let's create. We secured the Better For You company, which I can't believe that was available on a federal level in COVID.
Can't either.
We secured that, and we said, well, let's launch Boom Chaga under that. And then we had some other ideas, and then now we've acquired a couple companies because opportunity knocked. And that's what we have. So it's the parent company. It's the Unilever to all the different brands, right? So it's the Better For You
Yeah.
company with brands underneath.
Love
One
it.
other one other
That's
thing that
awesome.
I've learned along the way is when you a lot of these natural products companies start out in the labs and brains of people like Rich. They grow and then large corporations buy them and they change the ingredients. So what happens is that it drives people that are really doing the work crazy because you have a really pure something that does all the work to make sure there's nothing bad in it and the claims are as real as they possibly can be. And then since the claims since the FDA isn't watching or the government isn't watching or nobody's watching really, they change the product and keep the label the same on the front when it goes to large manufacturers. But let's not go there. I have some rapid fire questions for you, Rich. John, do you have any other questions that are burning a hole in your head for Rich
No,
before I
I
jump
think
in?
generally just I love the overall story and the narrative of how you're both almost internal nature of being an entrepreneur, however you want to frame it, with the basically this experience, and then you're now realizing like almost your full entrepreneur potential. I think it's just an awesome story. And yeah, no, Mike, I'll have some rapid fire, but I figured we were going to transition that way. And then if we can get to like probably the biggest decision that you had, I think that would
Yeah,
be
let's do
good
that first.
as well. Yeah.
And just before that, Rich, before we both forget to ask you, John wants to do mushrooms that you've created. How do you get Boom Chaga if he wants to buy some?
Yeah, so we are going to put on our website where to buy local because I want to support retailers and make sure that people can go in and get educated on natural health wellness as part of our broader purpose. If you don't have them in your local zip code, then you can buy on our website or you can buy on Amazon.com.
Got it.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you.
Rich. Okay. Biggest decision you've ever made? What was it? How'd you make it? Who helped you? And what happened?
The biggest decision I ever made was the physical move from being close to family and friends in the Midwest to moving to Florida. And I made that decision. It was the first time I made such a big selfish decision of looking out for my own personal well being with the personal loss and COVID. And, I felt myself having anxiety. And I'm not an anxious person. I'm like, oh, I'll tackle it. I'll get to it. Let me get 5 hours sleep. I'm up at it the next day. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So I felt anxiety that was out of control. And I said, just something drew me to that. And then look, a month later, here we are with the Better For You company and learning about Boom Chaga. So it was a blessing called serendipitous. I thought it was a very selfish decision at the time, and there are times I still feel guilty about that. But I made that decision in consulting with my best friend Brian and just other people, family, and so on. They said, "Do what's best for you, Rich." And I thought that was it was a gamble. I didn't know if that was the right thing to make me healthier or not mentally and physically, frankly. And it took some time, but it was. So that was the biggest decision. It was more personal. Personal always will trump business stuff.
Yeah, the idea, I remember that conversation with you and how you were struggling with it, but leaders put their own oxygen mask on first, and it's worked out really well for you. So, congratulations on being so courageous.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
okay, so
I
here's
had a
some,
big move. I had a big move impact my life too. Moved from Chicago, and where I just never thought I would leave, and
yeah,
uh, to Seattle. And even when I moved, I intended on moving back, and then like everything went really well. So, and then I had kids, and it made it harder to move back. So I've been here now 30 years. But I think that's interesting how when you do pick yourself up and I don't know, transplant yourself. And I know you had other things going on at the time, but it is interesting how sometimes that really can change your mindset and which changes your life. Mike, are you experiencing anything like that with like kind of living in Chattanooga a little bit?
yeah, it's hard. I mean, family is important, and trying to make sure that you're not letting anybody down. John and I were raised Catholic. I'm not sure about your upbringing, Rich, but everything comes with a ladle of guilt. And that's one of those that has at least two ladles on it. You're just like, oh my gosh, who am I letting down with this decision? So it's hard. Yeah, I want to be here for my boys, for my dad. I want to be in Chattanooga for Tina's family. I want everybody to be happy, and it's exhausting. John, just to be, the move to Seattle was one thing, but when I heard that you'd made the Seattle Seahawks your number one team over the Bears, that was a bridge too far for me. So we need to talk about that offline. All right.
Yeah.
Um, right now, John's friends in Chicago are listening. It's like, what? All right. Okay. So rapid fire questions. Don't think about them. Just answer them, Rich. Coffee or tea?
Skip for a second. I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Uh, best leadership book?
Maxwell's 21. I forget the name, but John C. Maxwell
John
21.
Maxwell, yeah.
Irrefutable, whatever leadership. Yeah, principles.
Laws of leadership, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
One word you hope your customers use about you?
Honest.
It's not sexy beast, two words.
You said one word.
All right. You're right. Sorry, my fault. Most overrated business buzzword?
Glide path.
Most underrated leadership trait?
Integrity.
There you go. AI, overhyped or underestimated?
Underestimated.
John, AI, overhyped or underestimated?
I don't think it's overhyped. Um, I don't
Okay.
know if it's underestimated either. I mean, I'm in the circles I'm in, just continue to go on and see the potential and the risks. So
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
See, that's a diplomatic answer. That's the right answer. Okay. Particularly when you're running a consulting firm that delivers
That's
AI
AI
to
centric.
global clients. Like, what is he going to do? Like, what kind of trap question is that, Maddock? Come on. All right. Best negotiation advice in one sentence.
Look people in the eyes. Always be honest.
Great. One customer trend everyone is missing.
So I'm going to answer this from a consumer perspective. When I hear customer, the P&G training is that's a retailer and the consumer is the consumer, right? So I think you mean from a consumer perspective. Consumers want health easily.
Finish this sentence.
Biggest thing you've learned since starting the Better For You company.
It takes longer to get where you want to be than what you anticipate.
Got another one, John?
No, but I mean, you're saying it takes longer, but you've only been doing it 3 years. And
Dude, this is rapid fire questions. This is not like, yeah, come on. Finish this sentence. The companies that win over the next decade will be the ones that
Out innovate.
There you go. I love it.
Are you your best now or your best some other time in your life?
I'm my best now.
Nice.
Okay, what's something every entrepreneur believes about large companies that's completely wrong? And what's something every large company believes about entrepreneurs that's equally wrong?
So entrepreneurs think large companies don't want to innovate, and that is absolutely absurdly wrong. And then large companies think entrepreneurs don't understand, that they can't possibly solve their problems because the arrogance of a big company is we know best.
There you go. Well done, Rich. Rich, I think you've been through personal trauma and come out of it resilient and transformed. God bless you. And now you're going through the entrepreneurial business trauma. And I can see that it's making you better and transforming you again. So congratulations on your courage. And we are grateful that you gave us a little bit of your time today.
Congratulations on your success. Again, it's really, really cool that you've been at these unbelievable premier huge companies and you're taking all that and now starting something that you're clearly proud of. And you're clearly, like, you could hear the things that you talked about in terms of being value based, in terms of the purpose driven and thinking about that. And even your quick comment was, I want to respect local and you should buy it from a local that's awesome. So I think it's really great to hear someone like you that had the different experiences, but then come back to some core things that you believe in. And just congratulations.
Yeah,
John,
well done,
I appreciate
Rich.
those kind words, and you as well, Mike. John, nice to meet you, and Mike, always good to see you, Mike.